How do we follow that up? Well, we're talking about the Carolinas. So most folks don't realize, but there is actually a lot of movement going on as far as public transportation, especially in the state of North Carolina, with the S line being built with the Commonwealth of Virginia, but also it may be the missing piece of expanding high-speed rail from DC down to Atlanta. Well, I've assembled a roundtable of organizers from both the North and South Carolina, so we'll bring them on one by one. First off, we have Kristen Jeffers. Kristen was one of the first people to bring the concept of Black urbanism to the internet and social media in 2010 by purchasing and launching the Black Urbanist, which is in its 15th year and continues to be a resource for Black urbanism at the intersections of feminism, disability, and queer trans life. She's been featured on a number of stages and in a number of global and local publications. And finally, under the banner of Chris Pattern, she shares her own journey into sustainable fashion and invites others to do the same. A sought-after public speaker and workshop leader, she makes her home just outside of DC and has never had her hometown of Greensboro, North Carolina out of her mind. Welcome, Kristen. We also have Chris Jackson, also known as Chris Axon Jackson. He's a former resident of Charleston, South Carolina, but has also spent much time in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's currently a long-haul truck driver that still gets active in transit advocacy wherever he is. Welcome, Chris. We also have Nick Porcelli. Nick works as a sales engineer in the telecom industry and lives in the core neighborhood of Charlotte, North Carolina, and gets around almost exclusively by bike and transit. And he helps host in-person meetings and events with Charlotte Urbanists. Welcome, Nick. And last but there it is. Absolutely. Wait, someone may. Wait, somebody may turn their YouTube on that panel. And last but not least, we have William Hamilton, who is the leader of Best Friends of Low Country Transit and has led many, countless campaigns in the Charleston area, such as the Buses to the Beach, and is currently hosting many Transit Equity Day Rosa Parks pancake breakfasts. Breakfast, if I can get it right. Welcome everyone to the panel.
Thanks for having us.
Wonderful. I wanted to start off with just kind of getting to know everyone's individual situations as far as what transit looks like in your city and what improvements have been going on. So, Kristen, I wanted to start with you and tell us a little bit about Greensboro, North Carolina.
So first things first, let me make this the official announcement. Everybody's probably seen my newsletter that I'll be returning to Greensboro sometime this year. I probably should have updated my bio, but this has all been coming together. But yes, part of the reason I feel good about returning to Greensboro, even though y'all know, if you followed me over the years, it's a love-hate relationship for our transit. And that's really what triggered the platform itself. But I want to really shout out today on Transit Equity / Rosa Parks Day, like how proud I am of how Greensboro has stepped in. Most recently, they did a study with Jared Walker Associates to optimize their system, but they haven't waited until the study is over and things have been accepted to implement things. We now in Greensboro have 2 crosstown lines that don't just end at the depot. Historically, at least in this version of GTA, now years and years ago, Duke Energy used to run it or under Duke Power. And then the city took it over in 1991. So we're coming up on just over 30 years of city control again. But what's happened is now we have 3 really innovative lines. After having a little bit of a setback right at the beginning of COVID-19, where folks tried to turn off all of the buses, but I want to give a shout out to all the organizers on the ground who said, no, we still need buses, even if it's socially distanced, even if it's fare free, maybe it should be fare free. Greensboro Participatory Budgeting recently piloted with some of the Recovery Act funds from COVID, the federal ones, and they put into place the downtown hopper. So that's more of like a north-south line, but it still doesn't just stop at the depot. It goes from Revolution Mill down to the Union Square campus. So effectively, that's a north-south crosstown, not completely all the way across town, but that's still across town. Then we have Crosstown Max, which is, you could call it a purple line, and it goes across from, I believe it's the A&T campus, and I'm still learning my new maps here. A&T campus all the way out to the Wendover shopping district. Those of you who know Greensboro well, pretty much all of our big box stores, with the exception of a few, there's a huge cluster of them right near Interstate 40 and kind of just south of the 73, 840, the lower end of the 840 loop there. So there's that crosstown. And then my favorite one I've just learned about is, as a person who grew up in South Greensboro, the South Side Connector, which doesn't run all the time, but it connects the lower kind of the Randleman Road to the Holden Road corridor, which is still an active corridor and has a lot of folks, a lot of relative to Greensboro, population density. And so for those who are watching and didn't realize that Greensboro, as the third largest city in North Carolina, is the kind of the center and the beginning of the original North Carolina Railroad groundbreaking act happened there. Maybe you've gone through it if you've been on the Carolinian, the Piedmont, the Crescent. Of course, the Piedmont itself, that's kind of our state's function of commuter rail. Not quite as robust as what I've been living with here in DC with MARC and BRE, but it's definitely the same concept. And then, of course, we have a lot of walkable neighborhoods. We have a lot of areas that are effectively little smaller villages. In my practice over the years, I used to be really big on, everything has to be downtown. I don't understand why we have the Four Seasons corridor. I don't understand why what's become Midtown Greensboro, basically the Lawndale Battleground corridor, the State Street Golden Gate corridor, and then, of course, Glenwood and other smaller, and the Walker Avenue corridor that has the Bestway. Just these areas that have, and Revolution Mill that's come back online. Of course, we repurposed the Mill Village. So all of these things are coming together. And yes, we are still absolutely one of the bluest dots that supports transit, that supports a lot of human rights there in North Carolina, even though we've had bumps in the road on many levels. I'm excited to be able to come home, and my partner has insisted that she has a bus option. Even though we drive around here probably too much to be living a block from a metro station here in DC at the moment, she has insisted that we live near a bus line, and I'm telling her we have a lot of options for that. And stay tuned to which option we will pick, but I am very, very excited. And of course, the spur that we're going to talk about with the S line is going to help me be able to do more back and forth to visit the many friends I've developed in the DC and Baltimore areas over the years. So that's my take of what's going on. And of course, I want to honor everyone on the ground in Greensboro who has done this work in the Piedmont Triad at the state level and even at the federal level, who has believed in us and continues to believe in us. And please continue to pour transit money throughout North Carolina and all of our cities.
That's how you come out the gate. Well, Greensboro, I hope y'all ready. Y'all ready for this return. All right. And yeah, I absolutely sympathize that for someone who was born and raised in the South. We are really spoiled with a lot of the options up north. But it'll be good to return and just kind of center to show folks how important transit can be and how powerful it can be, and especially to such a beautiful downtown that Greensboro has and a lot of the growth that it is having. So definitely shout out to you. Nick, let's go to you. Tell us a little bit about Charlotte and the improvements it's making. I heard y'all are also investing in a new light rail line and a new commuter rail line.
Yeah, thanks, Bakari. We, in Charlotte, we're the largest metro city in the Carolinas at about 2.5 million people. We have an extensive bus network. We have 2 light rail lines, one that has mostly dedicated right-of-ways. One is basically a streetcar running on the street. And our upcoming proposal for transit expansion rework all depends on our ability to get a state sales tax passed, or a county-wide sales tax that we're working with the legislators in the state capitol to pass through, so we can fund our transportation system improvements. So that's starting in the foundation is our bus network. We're reworking our bus network to a couple of 10 or 11 priority corridors to get down to 15-minute frequencies. We're triaging some areas that are probably the least furthest out and the least dense areas, and leaving those for microtransit. So they're on-demand individual cars for people to use to get around for the same price as it cost to take a bus that you can request to the city. And then listed priority after that, we have a red line, a new heavy rail commuter line we're looking to do to the north. There's several high population suburbs just outside Charlotte to our north that we're looking to connect with that. And that'll connect all the way to our downtown area. We're looking at extending our streetcar line east and west to get further out into the neighborhoods and to connect to some of the big transportation hubs out there and other neighborhoods that have not had much investment in transit. And we're also looking at a whole new light rail line east and west across the city. We call the Silver Line. That would go from some suburbs in the southeast all the way to the airport, nearby the airport. We don't get to go into the airport like the better cities with transportation, but we'll get close. And so they're looking at, with the funding restrictions, how much of that can they afford? What all are the priorities of, with all those projects? Which one goes first? Which one gets frequency and quantity and all the dollars that we're looking at doing?
Absolutely. And let me just say the Lynx line going south through south of downtown looks beautiful, and especially with the trail that's like right next to it. Hopefully, you can take a page from that book. But in Charlotte to Charlotte Urbanist, like tell us a little bit about Charlotte Urbanist for those who aren't familiar.
Yeah. So one way we like to look at it is we're kind of encouraged by all the other nonprofits and the growing interest in urbanism across the internet and America. And we connected with a nonprofit called Strong Towns, who promotes local conversations, they call it. So our focus is really just to get people out and talking about these things, sharing their experiences, moving through spaces, using transportation, where is their work? Where do they live? What are the things they go to? What do they enjoy about it? What do they not enjoy about it? And then we connect people together, their shared experiences, and we send them and support them towards other events going on in Charlotte. So city council meetings, committee meetings, other developers doing really interesting things and making great places. Let's go walk these areas. Let's go talk to these people. Let's invite them in to talk to us. And that's what we're wanting to do is promote a network of urban fans in Charlotte.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. William Hamilton, tell us about Best Friends with Low Country Transit and about the transit down in Charleston, South Carolina and surrounding areas. Oh, we came. Hold on. Maybe come out. Because I'm hearing myself. Right. Muted.
Yeah, turn down your YouTube, but just talk into the camera.
Yeah, just come back again. And that maybe could work. While we're waiting for him to get it together, I wanted to ask, because we had a question in the comments from Ted Gemberling. Nick, is your microtransit that is going to be implemented with CATS being run by VIA, or is it being run in-house?
Let me double check that. I remember we are running it two main contractors to handle the network IT side and then to handle the operation. I was thinking of something else.
Wonderful. Let's check back in on William. Let's see if we got it. William, can you hear us? Maybe not. So I wanted to present something, and it's just kind of a map showing of what exists currently in the state of North Carolina as far as inner city transportation. If you can see the map on the right, those are all of the current Amtrak lines that run through the state of North Carolina. And if you can see this green line right here, this represents the S line that is being worked on. And there's been $1 billion that's been put into that line to utilize this right of way that goes from Raleigh up like right south of Richmond, Virginia. And as Kristen mentioned, that's going to be a huge boost to a lot of the economies in the state of North Carolina, which has been seeing a tremendous ridership, which we'll show later. And there's also been what's known as corridor ID projects that essentially are studies to either reenact existing passenger rail that existed, or to build new rail. And if you see in the map on the left, it shows a path that would possibly be for high-speed rail that would come from Charlotte to Atlanta. And it would go through the upcountry of South Carolina through cities like Greenville and Spartanburg. So it's really amazing, and especially with the increasing amount of trips that go between Raleigh and Charlotte. But I also wanted to mention this and bring this topic up just because while this is great for the improvements in transportation, it has come at a disadvantage to labor unions. And I know we've mentioned this in previous conversations, but North and South Carolina are one of the lowest states as far as recognizing unionized labor, with South Carolina being towards the bottom of this. So I wanted to bring this up. What to the panel, what have you seen and what have you heard about unionized labor or the state's unwillingness to recognize it or even give into the demands there? And anyone can comment on this.
Let me jump in. I want us to kind of be monitoring what's happening with the Amazon union election in Garner. Because for years, like, it was assumed, okay, you can unionize, specifically around, I would say, what's now, I think it's now the NC Teachers Union. It used to be just NCAE. My mom was active in it back in the 70s and 80s, and she kind of fell off of it. She was just like, well, we really don't have any organizing power. But then we saw about, I believe it's been within the last 10 years. I know I was out of state when this happened. The actions, like, now Moral Monday was started, and the energy of Moral Monday built into the red shirt movement on down at the state capitol, at the legislative building. And it's not that we don't want to speak up. Yeah, it's very difficult. And we still live in a state that has not restored unemployment benefits to a previous higher level. It's one of the lowest states for unemployment benefits. Yes, salaries are lower. I will be completely honest. If I hadn't left home, and I couldn't sustain doing my advocacy, I couldn't live. And I'm as a Black queer feminist, I'm a big believer in making sure people are sustained in our movements. That's how we continue to have movements. And I wouldn't be able to do this had I not gone somewhere and learned other things and been like, okay, well, now I have a package of things that I can bring home. I have a stability, even though it's been a rough period of time for me in these last few years. I do feel like North Carolina has potential, and this is the time to do it, because once this line comes in, part of the reason there's investment in our state is because we're known as having a very ready workforce for things like reshoring of manufacturing, but we also have wages that are kind of deflated. Now, that's not so much the case in the Charlotte Metro and the Raleigh Metro. And Nick could probably speak more to that Charlotte Metro is still one of the higher paying metros, but a lot of our smaller cities are missing out on some good opportunities because we're just now recovering from that wage stagnation and that unwillingness to engage in organization of labor, as well as just in general really good labor protections and support for families, singles, and anybody else who is of any and all marginalized communities in the state.
Absolutely. And I want to give a huge shout out to Cause, who's definitely working on that to protect Amazon workers in the state of North Carolina. They've been a huge benefit, and I think that will be great. And especially as one of our stories about one of the Amazon workers mentioned that they don't get a lot of leeway as far as getting to work, and that includes public transportation. I wanted to kick it to Chris Jackson really quickly. Chris, you've lived in both Charleston and Charlotte. Give us a little bit about that, as well as just kind of an overview of Best Friends of Low Country Transit and the campaigns that y'all have done. Oh, can't hear you. You're muted.
Hold on.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, gotcha.
Charlotte was phenomenal. I'm not going to lie. I could get around to the epicenter. I could get downtown. I can do whatever I wanted to do. I could get to UNCC in the area, the university area when I lived there. I could get to Pineville Matthews area. I could get to the malls. I could get to work in Pineville because I used to work at Olive Garden in the Pineville Matthews area for a few years. So it was awesome. Charleston, and Jack will tell you, it's a lot. It's a lot of work to be done. Sometimes the buses aren't on point. They're not doing what they should with the people, especially our drivers. Being a international over-the-road driver now myself in transportation with a TWIC card, driving a tractor trailer across the 48 states. I'm in Illinois at the moment. It's a lot of improvement needing to be done in South Carolina, heavy. But loving what I saw in Charlotte, and I tell a lot of the people that's in legislation in South Carolina, if you're watching, you really need to go to Charlotte and sit down and get on the lines, see how people can get around, see how people can go enjoy themselves, see how people can live and feel helpful. Being a avid transit advocate in South Carolina with Jack, and also taking it myself all the time back and forth to work when I was in food services. It was horrible in Charleston, trying to get to work downtown on the weekends, trying to get to where I needed to be. Now being in a tractor trailer and seeing how congested our highways are, seeing how dangerous it is, how people are distracted by their devices. Transit is critical, guys. Public transit and understanding how to use it every day and helping those who can't help themselves to get around, to be mobile, to be independent. It is very critical. But living in Charlotte for over a decade and now being in Charleston for a little over a decade, real talk, it is really, we need as much support on the ground in Charleston continually. But Charlotte, I salute you. Greensboro, I can't wait to come and get on some of yours. I'm excited to see what's going on in Greensboro, but it's really needed. So I hope I answered your question, Bakari.
Absolutely. And I just kind of wanted to show a little bit of this mismatch in Charleston. If you look at this map here, you can see downtown Charleston is in the bottom right corner, but you see the Amtrak station, which is also like another meeting point for some of the buses in Charleston. It's way up here by the Loop. And I know that there's also been some talk about putting a bus rapid transit line in Charleston. Where is that going at this point? Let's see if I also wanted to show, I actually met with William and Chris Jackson and taking a little tour of downtown Charleston. We were able to ride the free shuttle that is around downtown, and it was amazing because it was packed that day. And mind you, this was like a really hot July day. So it was amazing to see that there was much usership of the transit down there, as well as the opposite was the case for the station, to where it was nice and it was beautiful for having all that together. But as you can see, this was only the setup for coming through there. These are both of the tracks, and I know William would definitely tell us that there was a fight to even try to get this. But I also wanted to showcase something that William is working on today, and just kind of letting folks know about the threats of federal funding and what could be detrimental for the economy like Charleston if the federal funding were to dry up with it. And it's being coincided with the work that they're doing with the Rosa Parks Pancake Breakfast, as well as with a lot of the work that they're doing with William, with the community. William, can you talk a little bit about this? You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Haha. Well, let's talk about today's immediate crisis and then work back to the chronic problems. It's more interesting that way. Today we discovered that our Congresswoman, Nancy Mace, who spends most of her time harassing transgendered people and riding around with ICE arresting people that do terrible things like pick crops and wash dishes for a living, she has moved her office out to Daniel Island, which is 10 miles from the nearest functional bus stop. There's one bus that goes to Daniel Island twice a day, but that's probably miles from where her office is. So she's had continuous problems with the public. She's moved her office from Mount Pleasant, where it was on a secondary bus route. Previously, it was near Citadel Mall, which is on a major transit hub. She's now moved to Daniel Island to escape the public. We're going to visit her anyway. I've already been warned by the police that it's a private building. I've explained to them that private buildings are not paid for by my tax dollars and that I have a constitutional right to go see my Congresswoman, and we're going to go. We'll see how it goes. We're headed out at 4 o'clock today. But I believe, and we have been committed as an organization, to the principle that government and public entities funded with public money need to be in locations that can be reached by transit. And they can either make sure transit gets there or they can move to where transit is. So we'll be going to see Nancy Mace this afternoon. We didn't get our pancakes done this morning, but we'll be doing them later this week somewhere. And it's a nice way to do outreach to people. It empowers them. This has been the worst 3 months of my work as a public advocate and activist in my entire life. I have at least the incredible advantage of having lived in a decent America. I was 9 years old when we landed on the moon. I was 16 when we did the bicentennial, where there was an honest attempt, a defective attempt, to try to realize a larger vision of what patriotism in America was. In 1976. It was all done with polyester, and it's all kind of weird looking now. But there were people that took a real look at at African American history and women's history in 1976. And I understand that what's happening in America is incredibly discouraging now. But we can't all leave, and I certainly can't leave. And so we have a fight ahead of us. The fight ahead of us is a critical fight. In 2016, Charleston passed a referendum to build the LCRT, the first rapid transit system in the state of South Carolina in its entire history. It was supposed to run all the way from Summerville to downtown Charleston. The people in Summerville, the white leadership of downtown Summerville, claims the federal government told them they couldn't go to Summerville, but I have never seen a document that proves that. And I FOIA'd them, and if they had it, they'd have shown it to me. What has simply happened here is the white leadership of Summerville doesn't want transit because they're attempting to drive African American people out of the town of Summerville. So it now goes to the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds organization was taken over by a group of pro-Donald Trump people about 2 years ago that ran off a significant part of the Exchange Club's membership, and it is now a right-wing, deep red organization. And they have changed their mind about having a transit stop on their property, and they're now in a litigation with CARTA about eminent domain for getting property to put the end of our transit line on. Now, this is a transit line that would run to the fairgrounds. Any sane person would want the transit line to go to the fairgrounds, which is unused, 50 weeks a year. But they don't want it now and it's their private property. It's not. It belongs to a nonprofit organization, allegedly. And so we're in a fight with that and expect that they'll be bringing us trouble from D.C. shortly, since they're all got Trump on the brain. On the south end, the city of Charleston is being taken over by a bunch of multimillionaires because it's fun to play with cute old things. The transit line no longer goes all the way to the historic heart of the city. It was supposed to stop at Line Street, which is at the old edge of Charleston, but it now stops at Reynolds Avenue, which is about 3.5 miles north. So the bottom 4 miles of the transit line aren't bus rapid transit running in its own lane any longer, but buses in regular traffic. And that current trip for the number 10 bus line, which follows the exact same route, is almost an hour. So we've lost a lot on the north, a lot on the south, racism and white privilege and wealth privilege on both ends. We're still holding on to some of it. Whether we're going to lose it all to Trump or not, I don't know. This odd thing is, of course, Charleston desperately needs this transit line. Charleston has bet its future on tourism and medical services. We are the medical service hub for all of coastal South Carolina. We have a huge elderly population that's growing rapidly, and they move here because we have some of the best hospitals in a relatively cheap, conservative southern state. The problem is those hospitals need poor people to do nasty jobs. And there's nowhere for those people to live in the city any longer because they have been gentrified out of the city by the old people that are moving here to have their cheap labor to take care of them when they go to the hospital. We also have tourists, functionally the same thing, look for a relatively inexpensive place to go play with history. And they also need hotels with inexpensive labor and restaurants with inexpensive labor, and we're having a very difficult time keeping hotels staffed, and we have several large restaurant spaces in Charleston sitting dark because there simply aren't any people left to wash dishes, bus tables, and cook food, which is a huge part of why people now come to Charleston. Charleston desperately needs a real transit system, but of course they want the worst transit system they can get, and they don't realize that we already have a bus that takes 2 hours to go from Trident Hospital in North Charleston to downtown Charleston. It's the number 10. I ride it all the time. I can remember when the number 10 made the trip in 1 hour, the same trip. But it now takes 1 hour. It now takes 110 minutes to make the same trip because traffic congestion is slowing down the buses. Nobody's going to spend 3 hours a day on a bus to go wash dishes in downtown Charleston because the math says you're better off just working at McDonald's within walking distance of your house. So they can't get people to do the work. So Charleston's going to be losing the people that make its tourism work, and it's already happening. On top of that, of course, and on top of that, we're losing immigrant labor now, so there simply aren't going to be people to do the work. And this doesn't break my heart. Rich Republicans own these businesses. If they suffer, so be it. But these people say they want a tourism industry, but they're not serious about transit. Now, of course,
it breaks our heart, but just not for the owners of the businesses. We don't want the immigrants suffering because of this.
Well, actually, we think everybody should have lives of dignity and respect, right, where they have mobility and freedom so they can develop as creative, free individuals and contributing citizens to a democracy which includes and elevates us all. But I don't expect these bastards to know that or care. So if all they are is greedy, cheap, and ugly, then I can deal with that. But they're not going to have the world they want, which makes them money, unless they have transit. We're going to go see Nancy Mace about that this afternoon. We're going to make some pancakes later this week. We're going to be leafleting at bus stops. It gets harder. I've buried 5 wonderful people since we won that election. My wife, Julia, Moya Dean, the head of Black Lives Matter Charleston, the best man to work a bus stop with leaflets I ever saw. Kathy, an elderly German lady from Ladson, the best person I ever saw sitting behind a table doing transit. My wife, who suffered through it all, and Dave, who was a whiz with our computers. All those people are buried, and I have lost 10 people who've left because including Chris. Chris decided it was a better deal to drive a truck than to live in Charleston and work here. And and they need Chris. Chris was smart. He was good at what he did. He had strong communication skills. The company that Chris left needed him. But Chris needed to be paid more so that he could have a decent quality of life and hopefully own where he lives. And Chris couldn't get that in Charleston, so he left. And Chris worked in hospitality and restaurants here as well. Chris used to run a Checkers. Chris if you want somebody to run a group of young people and make them do something, Chris did the best transit outreach on the ground, door to door, of anyone we ever had. No one else came close. Chris could take any group of teenagers and turn them into a political weapon in 30 minutes and make them enjoy it. And Chris could do the same thing running a Checkers kitchen, but it didn't pay enough. And he couldn't find a decent place to live, so why should he stay? Yeah. And this is happening on a global level, too. I mean, we had a young couple here that ran our film society. They did wonderful things on a microscopic budget. And every Saturday you could go down and see some weird movie and buy overpriced chocolate from your local artisan chocolate guy and all. And it was on a bus line. Wonderful. But her husband got an offer. Come live in Switzerland. The schools are killer. Your kid will be taught in English. You have this cool, shiny train that'll take you to work in 5 minutes. You'll pay less in real terms for where you live. You'll have real health care. So they're left. And we lost our film society. Nobody's ever been able to start one. You don't have to give people a decent quality of life. You don't have to give them affordable housing, a decent place to live, a way to access adequate education. All this stuff is optional. But you will end up with a community of the old, the disabled, the crazy, and the criminal. Because everybody that wants something better will leave. In the midst of the pandemic, I was working at the corner of Mount Pleasant and King, handing out leaflets, trying to keep them from taking our transit line off of the old railroad line so they could use it for a walking park for rich people's dogs. 2 brilliant kids that helped us in the referendum campaign drove up in their Jeep, and I knew the Jeep well because they'd hauled a lot of people around in it. And they waved at me because nobody was shaking hands, and we used our little, they have those grabby things on sticks you used to pick up trash by the road. Well, we used them to hand out literature during the pandemic so nobody had to touch anybody. And they said that they were sorry, but they had worked on Charleston for 5 years and it was not happening. The time had come to have kids and grow up and buy a house. And they were, instead of waiting 5 or 10 more years for a possible bus rapid transit line to a maybe affordable housing complex, they were moving to Denver next week so they could live on the light rail line and get an apartment that cost them $150 less a month, where their kids could go to a high school that had a swimming pool.
How long have we been advocating for this transit rail?
They've been talking about this transit project off and on since 1995, so it is now 30 years. In fact, it was less time from the end of rail service between Somerville and Charleston in 1962 to the start of discussing this than it has been from the start of the discussion till now. I was closer in time to transit between Somerville and Charleston in 1995 than I am now. Most recently, they say maybe 2029. People ask me when. Well, I can tell you when. The transit system will be finished 4 years from now. It was 4 years from now 3 years ago, and it will be 4 years from now in 2028.
They've been promising for a long time.
And people have begun to figure it out.
It's just stalling.
However, we did win a bus to the beach, and we dress up as pirates and promote bus to the beach. If you're having a difficult time,
only for 6 weeks?
Only for weekends in the summer. But if you want to get people to ride a bus to the beach, I recommend you find very clever, creative women, dress them in leather as pirates, and have them hand out your literature. Nothing works like it.
That's fun. Hold on, to close this out and bring it to everyone else. With everything that's been presented, with the positives in North Carolina, the potentials in South Carolina, do you think that there will be more rail and more accessibility to transit coming through here? We'll start with Kristen.
Okay, absolutely. One of the things, though, we need to be mindful of is that every single state that is on here needs to be focusing on your state houses. Every municipality that has major companies, get those major companies as well as any other tax rates involved. Be mindful of how you're taxing people. I would love to see something like a license plate tax come back. I saw that in one of the videos. I know we're doing a lot of the sales tax. With that being regressive, we're going to keep getting pushback. We've seen that with half-cent sales, prepared foods tax all over the state of North Carolina. I don't think that's what we need, how we need to fund our transit in the future totally, unless people can see things happen. Now, if people see things happening, people can invest in it. This Charleston situation, as well as situations all over, aren't going to help the cause. Also, this whole human rights thing, what we are sitting in right now, like literally where I am down the street, like people are been asking me all day, like, are you sure you're ready to come back? I'm like, if we do not fix DC, it's not I don't want to take this conversation into the greater global political sphere, but we're looking at not having federal agencies. Federal grants have been suspended all across the country. And for me, I know that my family is from North Carolina. When I've taken Les, my partner, down there, she has fallen in love with it. Now, she's also a Southern. She's from Portsmouth, Virginia. And of course, some of you in the Transit Equity Network may remember her work around Hampton Roads, as well as up here in DC. But what we've seen is the opportunity to try to use our relative privilege. Let me be clear. There are privileges that I have had being out here on the road and being internationally recognized for this work, as well as like my bodily privilege that I'm going to try to use to be a resource for people, to be there, to nurture our young folks who are seeing my example. Because something has to happen. And it's, one of the things we are being asked to do, those of us who care about the globe, not just this country or any other countries, but the globe and our earth and sustainability in general, the environment, is to step up where we can and to go where we can have the most impact. I could keep chilling out here at the DC wharf and having a good time, walking the metro every day and having Safeway right outside my door and then Harris Teeter a couple blocks up the road. Or my partner and I can get in our little Honda Fit and carpool to the friendly Harris Teeter or have it delivered or walk to a Food Lion and be there and just put the word up. I'm at the point in my life where I'm not afraid of saying hard things. Because look, if I had said I said enough hard things in my career. I have told the truth. Like, if you read my newsletter, I do not mince words. But at this point in time, I do not want to be a drag on resources when so many others do need resources. We need to resource ourselves. We do not need to take anything for granted. So many people have told me, oh, they're not going to cancel this grant. They're not going to cancel this program. Look at what has happened in these first few days of this new administration regime. It has happened. And many of us who are Southerners, if you are watching today and you're wanting to know what's going on in the South and our resilience, it's being in our repressive states has taught us a lot of things. And there's definitely lessons. If you're new to all of this, new to having rights taken from you, but at the end of the day, we do not need to go back. Maybe some folks asked to go back, but no, I did not ask to go back. I know that one revolution for me starts in the body. So I am getting my body situated so that I can be there for others, that I can play point for so many of my colleagues and friends and family on the ground in Greensboro and in North Carolina that have wonderful ideas, that want to do things, that have been through the trenches. And then, as William said, there's been people that I've buried. Of course, people who've really been following me know that my dad was my first transit influence, and I still buried him because of things. We want these deaths to stop. And we lost so many people through COVID. And we're still going through COVID and bird flu and all these other things now. So I'm just fired up and ready. And I do absolutely believe that we will get more rail. We will get more transit. We will get more buses. We will get more bike infrastructure. We will get more walking. And one of the things I want to challenge us is to work with your family and friends to remove the stigma, especially in the South and other areas with low transit, that you've lost something. You've lost civil rights, or it's a shame to walk around your communities and to use transit. And then, of course, we'll continue to address the housing crisis will continue to address shrinking our roads, shrinking down stroads, and things of that nature that we've gotten good at with putting that message out there. But I really want us to start putting out the message that use your transit, lift it up, make it something that you can be proud of, and let's stop this idea that we need to defund these things or not provide them through whatever means we need to provide them.
Absolutely. Nick, you're up.
Yeah, all great things, Kristen. Thank you. For continued rail funding and promotion and the future of rail in the Carolinas, I think in North Carolina, our group sees that there's been a history of bipartisan support for rail in North Carolina. We were built on rail lines. Funny enough, none of our cities really are built on any rivers, like most cities may be. We were built pretty entirely off the rail line. And so we have a lot of really good fabric and history built around those throughout all the cities that still that were built during that time. And as far as the future, we still have a number of grants that have been given to the railroad lines across North Carolina, and the continued attention to the corridor ID program, where the federal government's studying new potential routes to implement. They're looking at a new routes to Asheville and Wilmington, and upgrading the main line from Charlotte to the capital, Raleigh, across the state. And we think that, we've seen record ridership over the last several years, well beyond 2019 and before levels over the last 20 years. So we add more trains per day every couple years to match that, which has been great. In general, hoping to see public support from all the additional riders using that, as well as the representatives seeing that number tick up as we push more people through the people rely on transit and become a better way to get around. As far as the future of high-speed rail, I mean, we would think and see that, given the history, that we would continue to invest in that as the South continues to grow, and our several cities in North Carolina do as well. Although when we talk high-speed rail, we're not really talking global high-speed rail. For us, it would probably be in the 90 to 110 mile an hour range. Then it'd be likely to happen with our continued investment from Atlanta through the Carolinas up to the Northeast Corridor. That's what we're hoping.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nick. William, round us out. You're on mute.
Okay. None of this is going to be easy. I've been at this 40 years already. My first advocacy was to protect the Rutledge Grove bus line back in 1986. So I have now been at this 39 solid years, and I've never had a driver's license. And I know this isn't easy, and I know it's scary for the kids. They never saw us land on the moon. All they've seen is this garbage for the past 20 years. But these people,
had a driver's license because you're legally blind.
I've never had a driver's license. These people are not unstoppable. The bullies always look scary when they gang up you and they're running, but almost all of them will run the minute you hit back. But if you don't hit back, you'll never know. You'll spend your whole life on the playground handing over your lunch money, losing your bus lines, losing your transit projects. Being afraid, and they'll just come for more and more. They want to take your freedom, they want to take your mobility, they want to take your community, they want to take your country. And so you have to fight now. And we're going to fight in Charleston, and we're going to fight in South Carolina. It's great here. There are lots of people to fight. They're located in every direction. You never run out of things to do. And it's such a shock to them. They don't know what to do. I have the police department in a tizzy because they don't know what's going to happen to Nancy Mace at 4 o'clock today. And they're going to find out at 4 o'clock, and they're going to find out again and again. I'm really sorry the country is this way.
Oh, yeah.
For God's sakes, to have mercy on the people in their 60s and 70s that have been fighting this for 40 and 50 years. They are brokenhearted. They have some fight left in them. But please understand that these people have written staggering checks on their lives to try to hold this monstrosity back. And I am humiliated and embarrassed that we failed. And I spend lots of time at night staring at the ceiling trying to figure out what the hell I did wrong. And I don't intend to surrender, and you shouldn't surrender. And people aren't free unless they can move. They can't get to the doctor, they can't vote, they have no control over where they work.
And by the way, the only thing that combats fear anyway is action.
Yeah, you can't
think it away.
You can't stay at home, you can't chase it away on the internet. You've got to pick up a sign, pick up a flag, stand up and go in. And even if everybody says later or not now, you have no choice now. We have months.
Look at what's happened in 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks. Just imagine a month from now.
But print out some flyers, go to a bus stop, and hand out something just telling people there is a resistance.
And talk.
And talk to them and shake their hands and tell them you aren't alone, you aren't crazy.
Tell your people. That's what I tell everyone.
And the flyers we're handing out here right now say, tell your boss, I have to have a bus to get to work, and I have to have affordable housing to live here. And if I don't have these things, you won't have workers, and you won't be able to run your business, and you will have to mop the floor yourself. Even plantation owners understand that they don't want to mop their own floors.
Oh.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much, Nick Rosselli, William Hamilton, Kristen Jeffers. Thank you all so much for all of your words. And we definitely want to invite you back, and we'll definitely plug all of your social medias for all of your work. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, I want to plug all of their networks. You can follow the Charlotte Urbanists on Instagram also. They have a link, meetup.com/Charlotte Urbanists. Follow Kristen Jeffers at theblackurbanist.com and at Black Urbanists on all social medias. And you can also follow Best Friends of Low Country Transit on their Facebook page. And I also wanted to point out all the systems that are offering free transit services for today.